Welcome to Uniquely Wired, the video podcast that uncovers the beauty and uniqueness of autism. Hi, I'm Nani, your host and passionate advocate for autism. On this video podcast, you can expect to hear stories about both of my kids and their autism journey, tips, encouragement, interviews of other autism moms, therapies, and so much more. Join me as we explore the world of autism through heartfelt conversations and informative discussions. Hi everyone, welcome to Uniquely Wired video podcast. I'm your host Nani, and on this first episode, we are going to be focusing on my daughter's autism diagnosis and how we started this journey. Let's get started. I want to start off this episode with sharing a little bit about myself. So I am Nani and I am 29 years old. I am a wife, been married on June 7th. Actually, it'll be our 9-year anniversary. And I am a mother of 2 autistic children. Eliana, who we will be speaking about today. She was born in August and she will be 7 this summer, which is crazy to think about, honestly. And then my little sweet boy, Jacob, who is going to be turning 4 in July. Also crazy to think about. But that's pretty much a little bit about myself. We are also a Christian family. I was brought up in the church my whole life, and that's just where my foundation is, where I am rooted in Jesus, and I'm never ashamed to share that. So let me start off with sharing that I used to be a teacher's assistant before I had my daughter, and while I was married, in the beginning years of my marriage, I was working at a charter school as a teacher's assistant. And in those classrooms, we had students that had an IEP, which an IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. And I remember there were kids there that were autistic. We had kids that had ADHD, different types of special needs. But again, I was just a teacher's assistant, so I was just doing what I had to do, supporting the kids, making sure they were completing their work. If they needed help in something, I would step up. I would check their homework in their backpacks and all those things, right? So let's start off with Eliana's autism diagnosis. So Eliana was diagnosed with autism back in 2018. And, my pregnancy, when I was pregnant with Eliana, I had no issues at all. Like, I had what you would say the perfect pregnancy. I had no issues. I had natural birth. I didn't even get epidural for neither of my kids because I have scoliosis. So if I would have gotten that would have literally left me possibly paralyzed. I just didn't want to do it. So I just went natural, had Eliana, and she was born only a week early. My water never broke with her. So I'm telling y'all, my GYN visits, they were just perfect. I had no issues whatsoever. And even birthing her, they gave her to me right away. We left 3 days after birthing her. They let me go home and all that stuff. And I remember that, again, I was working still as a teacher's assistant. So my mom would take care of Eliana. Her whole first year, my mom took care of Ellie while I was working. And I was a teacher's assistant, but I was part-time. So I wasn't working full-time. I would be off at a certain time, pick her up, go home, do what I had to do. And that was my schedule every single day. Then there came a point, that my mom could no longer take care of Ellie. So, of course, I had to quit my job at the school, and my husband and I spoke, and he was cool with me staying at home. So that's what I did. I became a stay-at-home mom in 2017. As soon as Eliana turned 1, literally a month later, it was my last time at the job, and that's it. I was home. But just to backtrack a little bit, during the time my mom was babysitting Eliana, I do remember her mentioning that Eliana was showing like certain delays, like she was pretty much not meeting certain milestones. And my mom would constantly be concerned about those things, right? Like she would tell me, Nani, she's not doing this. Nani, she's not doing that. Nani, she's not saying certain words, that she should be saying by now. And this was around 6 months, okay? This was around 6 months. And I was like, well, you know what, Mom? Like, I didn't think any of it, y'all. Like, if I'm real, I didn't think any of it. I was just like, we're just going to go with the flow. Like, I think she's just taking her time and it is what it is. Like I honestly didn't think autism. I didn't think anything. I just didn't think anything. Because number one, although I had children that were autistic, at the school and had ADHD and different types of special needs, I never looked into it. Okay, I never looked into it. And there's one thing I've learned that a lot of us, I'm not going to say all of us, I'm just going to say a lot of us don't know about different disabilities or different things because it's not us going through it. It's not us going through that journey. But once you are, going through a journey, through a certain season in your life, you then are realizing then this is real. Like, and then you start doing your research about it. You start really getting into it. But I didn't because number one, I didn't have a diagnosis at that time. I didn't know what was wrong. I just thought, from what I've heard, every baby grows at their own pace. So that was my mentality the whole time. Plus, I was a first-time mom. She was my first child. I mean, I had no idea about these things. Now we fast forward to her first birthday. And I remember at that time, I was already started noticing things. I was like, okay, well, this is becoming a little more, noticeable. I am starting to notice certain things, certain repetitive behaviors. Like one of it was that she would stare at the ceiling fan. She would love when we would turn on the ceiling fan. She would get super excited. She was also one of the very early signs she was showing was the hand flapping, and again, I didn't know these signs were, autism signs until after the fact, right? Until I heard the word autism from her doctor. But I'm just letting you know that those are the main signs that I noticed from her in the beginning, and the no eye contact, right? And not responding by her name. Those were like her very early signs. But again, I had no idea that's what it was. I'm just thinking, okay, it is what it is, right? Until I did like a pool party for her. It was Little Mermaid theme. And we have family and friends. It was a lovely fellowship. But we noticed that when we were singing happy birthday to her, she was not interested. Like Eliana was literally like, that was her face. She was super solid. Like, what is going on? What is this? Why are y'all singing? And then I didn't think any of it, to be honest. I didn't. I was just like, okay, maybe that's just her personality, right? I went along with it. We got home that night, right, from her birthday. And we got home at I want to say 9 o'clock. It was already late because the pool where we met at was maybe like 45, 50 minutes away. So we got home. Her gifts are on the floor. We are just getting ready to, take a shower, go to sleep. And then I noticed that Eliana did a whole I don't know what you would call it, 240, 280, 360. She was literally jumping on the couch, so excited, flapping her hands. In my head, I'm like, she should have been this excited, at her birthday, not to be getting home, right? That was just my mind. And I told my husband, I was like, this is strange, right? And, we put her to sleep. Then she had her doctor's appointment. I want to say a few days after her first birthday, she had her 12-month, visit with the doctor. And the doctor's checking her. They check her weight. They check her, her ears, her eyes. And once he gets to looking into her eyes, he's trying to get her attention. And, once he's done, he tells us, Mom and Dad, I have some concerns. I'm not saying that your daughter is autistic, but I am saying she is showing red flags. Now, I know before some of y'all get mad as of why he did that, he's not a specialist. Okay, I thought the same thing. Okay, I literally thought the same thing. I'm like, who is this doctor to tell me about my daughter? But honestly, looking back, I'm so grateful he pointed it out and he expressed his concerns, because I feel like if he wouldn't have done it, like, who knows, Eliana could have possibly gotten diagnosed a little later down the road, and maybe I wouldn't have known about early intervention, because at that time I didn't have the community I have now on my social media platforms, right, of autism moms, that I could see what is what and, you know, what's needed. I didn't have that at that time, you know, because that wasn't my focus on my social platforms. But as soon as he tells me this is the number you should call, like, he gave me information. He was like, call this number, let them know that you want to start early intervention with your daughter. And I was like, okay, what is early intervention? And he's like, well, you know, they'll come out to the house, they'll evaluate her, you know, to see what services she can get approved for. That was when I heard about medical assistance from her doctor, and, you know, I applied for it. She qualified due to her delays, you know, and due to her receiving early intervention. We got started with the process of early intervention. She got evaluated for early intervention, not autism yet. So we started early intervention way before I got an autism diagnosis. So she got approved for special instruction, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. She started those 3, you know, every day of the week she had a therapist at the house. Like, we were intense with it. I was like, whatever this is, it's just gonna, you know, do its improvement with these therapies. I did not think I was going to be sent to a specialist to get evaluated for autism, you know, to do that whole process of a diagnosis. I didn't think any of that. At the moment, I was just focused on my daughter getting her therapies, getting the services that she needed, and that's it. Just giving her what she needed at the moment, right? I didn't think about autism. I didn't think about a diagnosis. But, you know, time goes by. You know, I want to say maybe a few months go by, and her therapist and the service coordinator from early intervention starts to express concerns. And they're like, hey, mom, so we've been, you know, looking at Eliana, just the way she plays, her playing skills, the way she's, you know, trying to speak, but she's having difficulties, you know, and she's also flapping her hands, which is a sign of autism. And boom, that was the word autism again. You know, this is after the doctor mentioned it, and I was like, oh no, literally my world crumbled. I was like, what do you mean? Like, okay, so what do I need to do? You know, I was literally like, okay, I need to put on my warrior jacket, whatever you want to call it, right? And get my daughter what she needs. How do we do this? And those were the longest months of my life. Okay, they were the longest month of my life. Because, you know, let's go back. Let's go back a little more. I'm going to backtrack a little more. When I was pregnant with Eliana, like, I legit wanted a boy first. I wanted a boy first. I even cried when I found out that she was going to be a girl. I cried because I legit wanted a boy. I even wore a blue dress for my gender reveal, y'all. That's how bad I wanted a boy. But, you know, God was pleased to send me a girl. And I want to say, like, a week after I found out the gender, I was like, okay, well, you know what? Like, I love to get my nails done. I love to get my hair done. I love to go shopping, you know, all these girly things. Like, this is beautiful that God sent me a daughter, because he knew I needed a bestie to do these things with, right? And, you know, I'm just thinking all these things. I'm planning an entire future for my daughter and myself just to have fun, right? Because you're not thinking these things when you're pregnant. Like, you're just not thinking you're going to have a child that's going to have a specific disability. They're going to need higher support. You don't think about these things. You don't plan for these things, right? You plan for, you know, to do these great things for your child and with them, and all the fun things, you know, that you see other moms do, and all those things, to then realize, oh, you have to get an evaluation for autism with your daughter now. Then I'm looking up on the internet, what is autism? As soon as I start reading what autism was and just looking at the early signs, I was like, this is my daughter. Like, My daughter's doing every single one of these early signs. Like, she's flapping her hands. She's not making eye contact. She's not answering her name. She doesn't really show interest in toys. Like, all these things, y'all. And that's literally when my dreams with my daughter, when my perfect dream, right, with my daughter was shattered. Because I then started feeling like, is she ever going to be able to do these things? And I'm trying to hold myself. Is she ever going to be able to do these things? Am I ever going to be able to go to the nail salon with my daughter? Am I ever going to be able to, get my hair done with her at a hair salon? Like, are these things ever going to happen? And if so, when? When will these things happen? And at that moment, I had lost faith in God. I had lost hope. I literally, I was just like, why me, God? Like, I've been your servant for all these years. I've been dedicated to doing your will, God. And this is what you're giving me? Like, this is the season you want to put me in? This is the journey that you want to put me in? And my family? It took lots of questions. It took lots of frustration, lots of anger. I had to go through my grieving process that my daughter could possibly never get there. But I had to build up hope again. I had to build up faith again and trust that God is in this story. Trust that He's in my journey. Trust that He's already in the future. Even if I can't see it, He's already there. And again, that grieving process, I had already started it even before I got an official diagnosis, to be honest, because at the moment they expressed their concerns, like, my brain was already going crazy. So we get through the diagnosis process, right? I had to fill out literally, I had to answer 100 questions, okay? It's 100 questions that they give you to answer while they're watching her play, while they're seeing her do certain things and just watching her behavior and all the things. Then they'll call you back for a second appointment. At least this is how it was in 2018. And I know that it's still that way in most states. They call me back. They're like, Mom, so Eliana is autistic. And at this point, mind you, she started early intervention at 1.5. So she got her autism diagnosis when she was 2 and a couple months. So this is a year later that I'm getting this diagnosis after she's already in early intervention. So I was somewhat prepared, but at the same time, I'm still overwhelmed. I'm still grieving, okay? And now I'm actually grieving even more because I have an official diagnosis and I don't want to accept it. I will literally look up ways on how can I get rid of this? What it is that I need to do. I'm being honest with y'all, what it is that I need to do to get this away from my daughter. Because at that time, I had no idea what her future will be like. I had no idea and still really don't what her future looks like because I'm not the one holding the future, right? But I had no idea of these things, right? So I'm just trying to find a solution to fix my daughter. When honestly now I look back and I'm like, my daughter doesn't need fixing. She doesn't need this thing called autism to leave, right? She just needs acceptance. She needs to be loved. She needs to be nurtured. That's it. That's it right there. But again, I didn't think these things at that time. Now, where I am now with Eliana's diagnosis, I feel way better. I want to say 95% better. Why do I say 95% and not 100? Because I don't know if I'll ever get to 100. But I would say 95%, and that's a heck of a lot of progress to reach. When I was just at a 2%, in the beginning, I've gotten all the way to 95% of hope in my daughter's future and just in her progress. Why? Because I've seen how much she's grown within these past few years. So I've learned that if I put my trust in God, if I truly just let God take over and watch over my daughter, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. Why am I not at 100%? Because uncertainty still hits. Uncertainty is real. Okay? I just want to put that out there. And we go through it on a daily basis with both of my kids. I can tell you now, I've grieved, I've cried, I've gone through my emotions. And now I look back, 2023, I look back to when I was a teacher's assistant to where I am now in motherhood. And I've realized this was all part of God's plan. Like, God just had a different vision for my life and future than I was planning. So I've just learned at this point, I can tell you that I'm trusting. I have hope. I am out there spreading hope on my social media platforms, and just seeing my daughter's growth and her development and how far she's come, it just makes it all worth it. It makes all the sleepless nights worth it. It makes all the therapies, all the appointments, just all of it worth it. I want to leave you with this encouragement. There is hope. Hold on to faith. And just know that God is writing your story. Literally, God is writing every single page. You trying to turn that page and God is like, hold up. I'm still writing. I'm still going. I'm not finished yet. I'm still going. I'm still writing your child's story. So I know that if you have just received a diagnosis of autism or any other diagnosis, just know that God makes no mistakes and it is not your fault. It is not your fault. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this first episode. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Let's stay connected and be encouraged.